Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. Gangi doing political commentary for the Media Speaks. You don't hear the theme music because I'm having trouble with Fact Cam, as you can see behind me. Of course, trouble being defined as it won't work. The Prison Planet, check this out. I thought this was interesting. Rand Paul, as many of you know, was my choice for president. That was who I would have liked to have seen. I supported him quite strong. And of course, Donald Trump took off. Not opposed to the Trumpster. I think he's done a fine job. But Rand Paul is much closer in some ways to the libertarian ideals that I have always had. Other than matters of healthcare, of which I tend to say that if the state wants to have a healthcare system, I could actually bend that far in the lefty tree. But other than that, I'm pretty much libertarian in my views. But I think it's cool to note that Rand Paul might be one of the only people standing between all-out war and a more peaceful dialogue, which I think, especially after the Bush years and to some degree even prior, kind of war-weary here. So I thought this was worthy to get to. A report citing an unnamed aide to President Trump has suggested that the only reason that the U.S. has not embroiled in military conflict with Iran is because Rand Paul has the president's ear on foreign policy and is offsetting the parade of war hawk neocons circling Trump. If you guys want to call in, I got people trickling in here. 330-754-4763. Again, 330-754-4763. The report published by Politico notes that Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, was a staunch proponent of regime change in Iran, as was Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Secretary of Defense James Mattis. And I'm scratching my eye on film. It's that time of year. Allergies got me. All three have embraced the neocon position of preventive military action, but now have outlasted publicly that the U.S. will not seek regime change in Iran. Now, regime change is a clever rewording of the word invasion. We are not going to go invading Iran. And that's, of course, a good thing, particularly if you have people that could be in danger of, if you have people that have volunteered into the military families. I know I have lots of military family listeners here, so it's important that we have somebody standing against that. And again, Iran's a horrible nation. Their leader encourages them to harm America. They chant death to America. And Ahmadinejad and others have said that it doesn't really mean death to America. It's just what they use for unity. Oh, just for unity. Isn't that interesting that you're unified by calling for someone's death? So I'm not standing up for Iran. Okay, they're trying to build a nuclear power plant on an active fault zone. So they're really not the tastiest cheeseburger in the bag to start with. However, we don't need to go invading them and making the matter even worse. What we need to do is simply quit dealing with them. And that can be done quite easily since already, when's the last time you picked up anything in America that said made in Iran? I rest my case. While Trump tolerates his hawkish advisors, the Trump aide added that he shares a real bond with Paul. He actually, on a gut level, has the same instincts as Rand Paul. That is very good to know. The report further notes that Trump has stopped short of calling for regime change, even though I already read that one, I'm sorry. The source indicates that Rand Paul has persuaded the president and not only to stay out of Iran, but the commander-in-chief have bonded over a shared delight of thumbing their noses at experts, and the president likes to deride the foreign policy egghead. So basically, Trump is laughing at the people that want to send us into war over every little thing as well. And again, there are people that have said for a very long time that the military-industrial complex, the way they are sort of interlocutor into profiting off one another on the backs of people that have signed on to the military, that's a common fear. And it is good to see that the president is leaning away from that. Again, 330-754-4763. You can PM me on Facebook. It's very hard for me to keep up with the scroll, and then people tune out while I try to. LA officials moved to ban rental scooters in March. So why are they everywhere? This is the LA Times. Now, just let that sink in for a second. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about that here in Canton, Ohio. Because why is it? How did it become okay for everyone to allow the government on all levels to say what you can? You can't rent a scooter. The bastards in Canton are trying desperately to fine me for not having someone living in my house. I have two properties that my wife and I were going to repair. And then when we separated, I have these two houses. Of course, now I have no one to help me repair them. So I don't have anybody living in them. That's because one of them have a hole in the roof that looks like the boulder that took out the dinosaurs hit the thing. So needless to say, there isn't someone living in it. And it doesn't take a real genius to figure this out. However, the city wants to fine me for someone who doesn't live in my house, as if it's any of their damn business what goes on in my house. I understand if it was being used by crackheads or something, but it's not. Mainly because they freeze to death because there's a hole in the roof. But my bigger point being that we've entered this mamby-pamby sort of mindset where it's okay for the government to pretty much go ahead and tell you, when you're allowed to fart, for crying out loud. And it almost goes on without ceasing. And people are just somehow perfectly okay with it. And that is something that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Listen to this. A proposal in July to temporarily ban rental scooters in Los Angeles sparked an outcry from transportation advocates and some lawmakers who said that the zippy devices were a transportation innovation that should be regulated, not banished. Why are they going to regulate? I mean, yes, you can't have people doing, tricks in the middle of the road, but within common sense, this is none of government's business. We already have rules against doing something stupid in the street, whether you're on a scooter or not. During the debate, through a crucial point when unmentioned, LA lawmakers had already backed a temporary scooter ban, as if it's any other damn business. 5 months ago, the Los Angeles City Council unanimously approved a motion to place a memorandum on dockless transportation systems until officials could prove rules governing their use. Governing their use as if it's a bomb. Scooters should fall under the umbrella of a memorandum, said Oliver Howe, a transportation department spokesman. The city never took the final step to turn the motion into law, but in some parts of City Hall, lawmakers wished to seem clear for the time being the scooters weren't welcome. Somebody else is actually renting them, and it says to ride, the users must sign up through a scooter company app, provide license number and credit card information. How about the people stand apply instead the one finger salute and rent these things out pretty much as they want? And I've said this for a long time. It's probably not going to happen because so many people in our country are so divided by so many different things. Oh, greetings, Jordan. Hello there. And John, Bill, Jay, and Chris. Greetings. Welcome aboard. I've said this for a very long time. If, let's say, everyone in one state, they all got together and they said, maybe in a Facebook group, still this idea, and maybe in a Facebook group, we are not going to pay any tickets. None. And if we get busted, we're going to keep driving. And if they fine us, we're going to keep driving. Now, what you're going to say is, Sam, that they're going to put you in jail for that. Yes, they will, if 30 people do it. What if you could get 1/3 of the driving working population in any one state or even county to do this? You're gonna arrest 1/3 of the working population? Let me know how that goes. What you're going to do is you're going to go after the worst of the worst. You're not going to go after somebody who has had only just a couple of shots. Not a word, Lindsay, just a couple of shots. You're going to go after somebody that is annihilated. Okay? You're not going to go after the person who was doing 35 and a 25. You're going to go after the idiot that was driving 100 miles an hour in a 35. And there isn't anything the system could do to stop that. But do you want to know why that doesn't happen? Because we're too busy arguing about Republican or Democrat or looking after me, which was what I talked about with my Facebook listeners before I went on. This gonna get mine mentality has taken over our relationships, our marriages, our business dealings, and it allows government to reach in and pretty much pick our pockets at will. And we're so divided among each other that we just allow it to happen. Listen to this. Conservative Tribune: extreme poverty has dropped 94% as the world population to 9.6 thanks to capitalism. In other words, I'm not going to stay on this forever because a sure way to lose listeners is to start reading stats. This pretty much shoots down the whole notion of the socialist communist outlook here, because most of the nations that have embraced this have found themselves with something called poverty. Meanwhile, though it does have many faults, of which I just named some of, capitalism has taken more people out of poverty than any other system, particularly the ones that the Sanders camp is hoping for. According to the facts, it turns out that worldwide poverty is declining at an incredible rate, and Western-style capitalism is the main reason. The speed of poverty alleviation in the last 25 years has been historically unprecedented, explained the Foundation for Economic Education, a pro-freedom think tank. Not only is the proportion of people in poverty at a record low, but in spite of adding $2 billion to the 2 billion people, to the planet's population, the overall number of people living in extreme poverty has fallen too, according to information from FEE. In 1820, 94% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, pointed out Alexander Hammond, a researcher at humanprogress.org. In 1990, this figure was 34.8%, and in 2015, just 9.6%. The good old days were not necessarily the good old days as it was defined. That's interesting to point out because we've somehow entered into a time when some of the strangest ideas have been embraced, even as they're failing currently, like in Venezuela. Yes, I can see your comments. Greeting. All right, guys, I've got 2 stories left, actually 3. Though this was interesting because science has failed at this so many times that they've done it once again. They claim to have solved the Bermuda Triangle. The trouble with this is, it'll be pretty obvious to anybody that hears it, but we're going to go with it and see when you get it. British scientists believe 100-foot rogue waves could be the reason why so many boats have been sunk in the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, because after all, we all know that those rogue waves, damn them, they take out planes in the sky. Those ridiculous rogue waves wash over the boat, but leave the dog and the parrot intact. Rogue waves are responsible for boats that are found in the sea with food that has recently been cooked, everybody missing and no bodies. Okay. Rogue waves are responsible for airplanes falling from the sky, but leaving no oil slick nor trace of debris. I think we have established that they did not solve the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought it was interesting. The infamous body of water in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean stretches 270,271 square miles between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Also known as the Devil's Triangle, of course, it's claimed over 1,000 lives in the last 100 years, a little bit higher than that. Some of them are because they don't know if the person is dead. They're just, again, they found their boat without anybody in it. They don't know that they're dead. The number is actually a little bit higher because it takes a while for everyone. They don't declare you as dead just because you're missing right off the bat. Rogue waves, which last for a few minutes, were first observed by satellites in 1997, and they are roughly 100 feet high. So that's what they're claiming is the answer, even though I just showed you that that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. All right, guys, 2 stories to get to, ending with a bit of levity, at least. While getting this was classic. Yahoo News: Who let the goats out? What? Runaway herd invades Idaho neighborhood. More than 100 goats burst into a neighborhood in Boise, Idaho. I'll be amazed. This will be like everybody's favorite story. It happens every time I do one of these. It happened on Friday, startling residents and captivating spectators on social media as they feasted on lawns, flower bushes, and tree leaves. The herd of goats had been at work cleaning some land for the country when scores of the inquisitive animals escaped at 7 a.m. So basically they brought them in like human lawnmowers, and they quickly ran over the city. Somebody tweeted, "They're mad." Beautiful. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. We got the last story, the dumbdee of the day. Remember, you can donate if you want to at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. You can do that through PayPal. And when you do that, all money goes towards a better show, like lights and all that crap I have around me. All right, friends, Conservative Daily Post. I wrote this, so I'm going to read it a little more than I have been the other ones, since, you know, it is my own words. This struck me because never has the pot called the kettle so black. This story truly struck me as a he said what moment. This is kind of like Adolf Hitler wanting to give a speech on human kindness. Human Rights Watch wrote that authorities in security apparatus and Iran's judiciary continue to target journalists, online media activists, and human rights defenders in an ongoing crackdown against international legal standards. Their article is full in the current 2018 horrors of Iran. Yet that did not stop Iranian leader Mohammed Ahmadinejad, former leader, from the writing about President Donald Trump and basketball star LeBron James. He said, quote, "In my opinion, everyone deserves a president." Take 2. In my opinion, everyone, especially a president, should love all and not differentiate between them, as Yahoo News has confirmed. Really? Would that include people like child rights activist Saeed Shahzad, someone abused terribly in prison there? The hardline Islamic former leader was giving his 2 cents about the feud between Mr. Trump and basketball player / frequent complainer LeBron James, who, of course, I gave him his theme song, Godsmack's Crying Like a Bitch. Still, who is he to lecture anyone about sportsmanship or having a love for all people? Much like North Korea's Kim Jong-un, I wrote Ahmadinejad, who once drew parallels between Satan and former President George W. Bush, which might have been close, is a basketball fan. He admitted that he loved NBA greats James and Michael Jordan, as well as Denver Nuggets player Muhammad Abdul-Rauf. What is the attraction between brutal world leaders and American basketball? In any event, this is a person who has claimed that there are no gays or lesbians in Iran. Zero, zip, zilch, none. Not a one. Doesn't sound like any. If this is true, then the world is left to either believe that the sexual practices that have been almost as old as mankind has skipped that Middle Eastern nation, or that things may be so strict there that they don't dare to show their heads, lest they be lopped off with a blade or they are tossed from a skyscraper. I wrote, if the way that Iran treats people is loving and all and not prone to differentiate between them, why did Iran human rights abuses, as a Google search, call up 4,580,000 results in 0.64 seconds on 8/7/2018, 4:23 EST. The fact is that Ahmadinejad may have uttered the most hypocritical statement of his entire career, or maybe anyone else's. It may remind some history buffs that Adolf Hitler was renowned for being the first major world leader to care about the fair treatment of animals, and he butchered countless human beings with no qualms. Then again, maybe that is why radio host Michael Savage called leaders such as Ahmadinejad Hitler in a headscarf, after all. Friends, you are listening to The Correct Views. You won't be for much longer, though, because it's over. Thank you for tuning in. Hit share, hit subscribe, and please donate at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. You can donate through PayPal. Good night, friends. God bless. If I can find the end button.